Um, Now let's fast forward a little bit and let's talk a little bit about the last couple years because um towards the end of my brother's life, he ended up getting a divorce and he moved back home. He had some physical ailments that he was dealing with, and my parents were the ones that were here with him. And I'd like to know a little bit about that journey for you, the last few years with Robert. As things alter. You know, in my last interview when I talked to my sister from the mission, Jennifer, she talked about the physical ailments that drove her mother to the point of suicidal thoughts and physical pain and also insecurities, depression. They all play into making that decision of ending one's life. And I know it's a bit sensitive. There were many experiences that you and mom went through um, that were really hard for you guys at the time. But I'd like to kind of bring that about and talk about that if you're okay.
To be honest with you, the last 4 or 5 years I had with my son was probably the best years that I've had with him since he was a grown up. Robert notified me that they were going to leave and go to Louisiana. They were going to move to Louisiana with his family, and I said, "Was that a good idea?" And he said, "Yeah, I knew we need a new start." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." And they were all gung ho. They were all ready to go to Louisiana, which is, I don't know if y'all been in Louisiana. It's a nice little state, but it's a gloomy state. Um, but at the same time, he wanted a new start, so everything was fine. He packed up his SUV and got it situated and moved on. And we had our last dinner with our son and our grandkids and Rita and his ex-wife. So we said goodbye. They got up and left, and I'm assuming the first year was okay when he got there, and things got a little bitter and just some family issues that he had that he uh, just out of control. It kind of went out of control. But at the same time, it was something they had to go through because of some. They have to learn these situations. So hopefully, as we were at home, we prayed that they would learn from these things and grow and keep their family situated. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way because things happened and his ex-wife went one direction and Robert stayed with his brother with Tony and Santana. Well, she took the girls to with her, and um, and so he stayed there and worked. And he was doing very well. He was looking for a place to stay with his boys. He had a dream that he wanted his children to stay there and play with his cousins, with Falipule, with Johnny John, and the Professor John Quincy, and Bradshaw, and stay with their uncle Christopher and Macy, their aunt. So everything kind of worked out there. I went out there when it was flooded, when Louisiana was flooded. So I went out and tried to help out a little bit. And he was with his sons then. And he enjoyed it. He said, "Dad, this is probably one of the best times I've had, with my boys. I could see my boys." So Robert would go to work, come home, stay up all morning to watch his kids and go to school and whatever. So that was his routine. But he stayed over his brother's house and things were okay as far as I was concerned. And until I moved back from Louisiana to Utah, and that's when some of the issues started happening, and so he was broken. He was his sons were taken from him, and when the divorce procedures went into progress. He didn't have an opportunity to have his children with him, his sons, and that broke him like crazy. Um, so so he got into the drink. Well, he was drinking then, so it got worse. But he got physically ill. He had uh, some kind of illness with his back, uh, and he was struggling with that as well. So with that in play, and then with everything else, the emotional part and the family situation that compounded the problem that he had. So what happened was he just fell apart. Everything that he did, he wasn't satisfied because first of all, he was in pain. Second of all, he didn't have his kids, and he couldn't see his kids at all. And I'm not saying this try to hurt the people or the other party, but you know, those of you guys that know me, I'm real. Let's be real here. This is the compartment that happened that was part of the ailment that he had that he suffered through. And in anybody's life who's thinking about suicide, there's always components that adds up to the last act, which is uh, taking their lives or whatever the case may be. He always told me that if he had an opportunity, he would give up life then. So he struggled with that. When we had celebrations here and there, Robert didn't. He was there with us, but he wasn't there with us. If that makes any kind of sense, because he felt he didn't have the opportunity to be with his kids and enjoy that time with his kids, like his brother enjoyed the company with his kids or other people in his family. So that's what hurt him the most. And it continued on until the last fatal days of his life. Uh, he would show me, uh, he would show me some of the stuff that he received through his phone and how, I mean, they're ugly. Uh, he would argue with his ex-wife and give me these things that she would write back and the things that he would write to her. And, you know, and let's be real here. It wasn't the best things to write. Uh, if you're looking at a nasty novel, that was part of it because the words and the attitude and the emotion that was drawn into these writings, it was just didn't make sense because the hatefulness that they had for each other. But unfortunately, it's because, you know, it kind of went towards the kids as well. And and my last day with my son was last year with them. I did, you know, it's suicide. You never know what's going to happen. Um, it, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You do the best you can. You do what you can to suffice the problem through words and through counsel. I would stay up with my son uh, sometimes 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just trying to bring him down to the part where he's ready to go to sleep. But most of the time, he was so drunk and high with emotion is that he wouldn't go to sleep because, and he would sit in his room and just waste away. And that was reality of the whole thing. He would waste away. And a lot of people said, well, you know, why didn't he call me? Or, you know what? It's the last thing a person thinks about is calling somebody and and you know giving them how they feel and what have you, explaining to them because you know me myself, I was always against suicide. I always had my opinion about suicide until it happened to my to my own family, my own son. And then I had to look at another equation of the emotion that comes with these thoughts. And so what happens is that we don't know those emotions until we experience it through the second party, which is, my son Robert, which is, uh, and he would explain to me how he just didn't feel like he was a man because he didn't have his children. He didn't feel like he was worth living here because he didn't have his children. Um, so he said it was worthless. So he drank and drank, and he would sit in his room and drink 4 or 5 quarts of liquor and do other things. But the thing that amazed me about my son is that he would always get up in the morning and go to work. You know, that was one of the things that I read because he was called the laziest, a hole. If they could only see my son at that time going to work and still, under the influence, and people don't see that. So it hurt me to read those kind of things. It hurt me to see my son go through that process. And so that, you know, uh, like I said before, you never know this is going to happen because the day that it did happen, it was the day before, 2 days before. He told me that he was going to help me get my karate studio going. He was going to be my teacher, and he was going to go over his lady friend's house and check out see what they're doing. And then Wednesday we didn't do anything. Wednesday, Thursday we called around and we called his lady friend, and he asked her where Robert was, and she said, "Oh, Robert came back home Wednesday night." And that's when his mom and I was looking for our son, and unfortunately, it was a bad situation. We found him in a garage on a ladder.